Even after the completion of Scarlet and Violet's DLC, the Indigo Disc, there are still so many mysteries surrounding Area Zero. While there are many, one of the most discussed is the illustration of the gorilla-like Pokémon, which appears in Heath's notes. Will this be a mystery that is left unanswered as the Pokémon game train keeps on moving along? Or will we see the truth be hinted at in the upcoming Pokémon Day announcements? Recently, I've seen the theory that this unknown Pokémon may even be inspired by the Japanese folklore story of Kintaro, a theory originating from Tyranitar. So in this video, we will be discussing the possibility of this speculation and theory becoming reality. I'm Sue from Pokisutami. Thanks so much for clicking onto this video. While you're here, if you enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe and drop a comment down below on your thoughts about this mysterious gorilla Pokemon. But with all of that being said, let's jump into this video. So the one and only glimpse we have seen of this mysterious gorilla-like Pokemon is an illustration in Heath's notes, sharing a page with illustrations of other known Pokemon such as Pawmi, Flamigo, and Nacli, strongly implying that this gorilla must also be a new Pokemon too. However, some may speculate that from the back image we have, this gorilla resembles Oranguru, the normal psychic gorilla Pokemon, first revealed in the Sun and Moon games. However, there are some clear physical differences, but we know Heath's illustrations are not always accurate. Just look at the Paradox Beasts and Swords of Justice, for example. The current fan speculation is that this gorilla Pokemon will be inspired by the Japanese folk story of the Golden Boy Kintaro. Kintaro, whose name literally means Golden Boy, is a folklore hero who had superhuman strength from childhood. There are many tales and different versions of Kintaro's story, but the common theme is that he was raised in the area of Mount Ashigara by Yamauba, the mountain witch, whom in some versions of the stories was his biological mother and in others was his adoptive mother. Being raised on the mountains, Kintaro is said to have befriended many of the animals, from deer, bears, rabbits, and monkeys, just to name a few. And being as strong as he was, as Kintaro grew up and became even larger and more powerful, he eventually became a retainer of Minamoto no Yorimitsu, and was one of the members in the party who defeated the dreaded Shuten Doji, the Oni King, who Ogapon draws some influences from. Additionally, in Japan there are many folk stories and tales, but out of all of them, the core three, which still hold massively strong cultural importance, even in today's modern Japan, are Momotaro, the story which Ogapon and Petron draw much inspiration from; Urashima Taro, the story which Terrapagos draws strong inspiration from; and finally, Kintaro, a story that has yet to be covered during our time playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So now that we have rather briefly looked at the lore behind Kintaro, let's look at the possibilities of when we could meet this gorilla Pokemon, before finally adding all of the dots together to decide just how likely it is for this gorilla Pokemon to be inspired by Kintaro. So we have three future possibilities. First, we will just never find out. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time something like that happened, right? Second, we will get a third DLC where the gorilla Pokemon will make a grand debut. And third, the gorilla Pokemon will have a key role in the next rumored Pokemon movie. The pessimist part of me believes that the first choice is the most likely outcome, but let's try to look at things a bit more positively. While I personally don't believe we will be getting a third DLC for Scarlet and Violet, we know from hints given by Riddler Coup that it seems we will be getting our first Pokemon movie since 2020's Secret of the Jungle. So it's possible that we may meet the gorilla in the movie. However, it's also important to keep 2020's Secret of the Jungle movie in mind, as it features Sarud, a mythical monkey Pokemon. While being classed as a monkey, there are a lot of similarities between monkeys and gorillas. Would Anipoke really have two movies in a row featuring monkey or gorilla Pokemon? But there is one positive sign that could further hint towards a movie with a Kintaro-inspired Pokemon being released, despite the possible similarities with Secret of the Jungle. Perhaps such a movie would be intended to be first released in Japan during the Golden Week holiday period, a break of consecutive national holidays, one of which is Kodomo no Hi, a holiday that has strong ties with the story of Kintaro. Until now, all Pokémon movies except one have been released in Japan during the month of May, and before 2020 they were released yearly. But because this is the first time there has been such a large time gap in between movies, perhaps the Pokémon company will be eager to get a movie out as soon as possible. But as for the concept of a gorilla Pokémon being based off Kintaro, I have some doubts. While I do not believe they would hold back from making a human folklore character a Pokémon, Petulant being inspired from Momotaro is proof of that, a gorilla out of all the possible animals seems like an odd choice when it comes to Kintaro, as out of all the animals Kintaro was said to have befriended, a gorilla is not on the list. A much more obvious choice would have been a bear. In fact, when I first mentioned this theory to So, he shot it down as impossible because of that fact alone. But hey, creative thinking outside of the box is not out of the realms of possibility. However, interestingly, there is a young gorilla that can be seen in Kyoto Zoo, named Kintaro, after the folklore story hero. There is also some speculation that perhaps Ogerpon's companion was actually the human form of the gorilla Pokémon. However, if this was the case, there are too many clashing contradictions between the story of Kintaro and the Onis in Momotaro's story. Additionally, if you consider the idea that Ogerpon's companion was in fact the gorilla Pokémon, that means we would find it in Kitagawa? But if that's the case, 3 of the 4 mythical Pokémon would be located in Kitagawa rather than Paldea. But if we look past the idea of the Pokémon simply being a straight up gorilla Pokémon, and instead consider it to be more of a humanoid Pokémon with somewhat gorilla features, the burly frame, hairy back, etc, it could all be considered more possible, as so far we have only seen Heath's illustrations of the back. Perhaps in a haze, upon seeing the fleeing back of this unknown Pokémon, Heath mistook it for the similar Oranguru, which can be found in Paldea and he would likely be familiar with, and that influenced his drawing. But most of all, the strongest point that this theory has going for it, in my opinion anyway, is that it feels like it would be a complete waste for Game Freak to tell the story of 2 of the 3 Taros in Scarlet and Violet, then shun the final one. In the end, I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to this theory, as I can see points in which it seems possible and other points which make me have serious doubts. Tell me in the comments, do you think we will find out more about this mysterious gorilla? And if so, do you think it will be inspired by the legend of Kintaro? If it is, I will definitely make a deep dive video, further detailing the connections between the Pokémon and Kintaro, and delving deeper into the stories of Kintaro, much like my previous Ogerpon and Petulant deep dives. But that's all there is to this video. Thanks so much for clicking onto and watching this video. I hope it's been helpful or insightful in some way. Please do consider liking, subbing if you're not yet subscribed, and dropping a comment about your thoughts and opinions on Heath's mysterious gorilla. But for now, it's time for me to say bye bye, mata ne!